Hello, 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 everybody. Hello, 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 everybody. I'm Chapman Chen. Nice to meet you here. Today we are going to talk about the documentary Christspiracy, which is being shown in the UK, in the US, in Australia, New Zealand, etc., etc. Surprisingly, a Guardian News review has been published, which unjustly reviles Christspiracy. Summary: a review published by Leslie Felperin on Guardian News on the 19th of March badmouths the documentary Christspiracy, which is directed by Kip Anderson and Kameron Waters, and calls it names without providing any supporting evidence. This review fails to refute or even to mention any of the points made by prestigious theologians and priests in relation to vegan theology. For example, Pastor Robert Munro, Mr. Keith Akers, Professor Andrew Linzey, Professor James Tabor, Professor Robert Eisenman, Dr. Deborah Rooke, Dr. Will Tuttle, and Dr. Charles Vaclavik. The key argument, among others, put forth by these experts is that Jesus is a vegan Christ who died as a result of opposing animal sacrifice, cleansing the holy temple, and liberating the poor creatures of God inside. The film has been subjected to various harassments since day one. Apart from this review, Pastor Munro remarks at the film's beginning that the church will stop at nothing to keep the truth from getting out, and the directors suspect that there may be transfers of benefit between mainstream churches and the animal agriculture. Down below, we will briefly go through the arguments put forth by these experts. Wait a second. Turn off the heater. Number one, Gomless Tosh. The review concerned is entitled Christspiracy, the Spirituality Secret Review. Jesus was a vegetarian and other entertaining tosh. Without any concrete grounds, this review calls the seriously prepared documentary on which Kip and Kameron have spent 7 years filming. But this documentary calls it gomless, pseudo-scientific, naive, balmy tosh. That is nonsense. Number two, Jesus' Vegan Family and Disciples. Keith Akers, the author of The Lost Religion of Jesus 2020, and Dr. Charles Vaclavik, the author of The Vegetarianism of Jesus Christ 1989, point out in the film that Jesus' natural brother, James the Just, and Jesus' cousin, John the Baptist, were both vegan. And Jesus carried on the family tradition of veganism. So much the more, all the 12 disciples or apostles of Jesus were vegan, according to Eusebius, The Proof of the Gospel, 3.5. In this connection, Professor James Tabor, professor of ancient Judaism and early Christianity at the University of North Carolina, author of Paul and Jesus 2012, quotes Jesus' warning against meat eating. Be on guard so that your hearts do not become heavy with the eating of flesh. Luke 21:34. Old Syriac Aramaic manuscript of the New Testament Gospel. But many people will ask, how about the miracle, 5 loaves and 2 fish? Didn't Jesus distribute fish? Well, according to Keith Akers, in the miracle of 5 loaves and 2 fish, Jesus neither condoned the eating of fish nor gave it to the masses. Matthew 14. If you carefully read the text of Matthew 14, you will see that Jesus only broke the loaves of bread and gave only gave the loaves to the people. 12 baskets were filled with the broken pieces of bread. Subsequently, when Jesus referred back to the feeding of 5,000 and of 4,000 in the Gospel of Matthew 16:9-10, and the Gospel of Mark chapter 8 verse 19-20, he merely made reference to the loaves of bread and the baskets holding the broken piece of bread, and never mentioned in any way the fishes. Obviously, Jesus only used 5 loaves to feed the crowd, and the reference to the fishes is a subsequent interpolation by the lying pen of the scribes. Number 3, Jesus of the Nazarene movement. Professor Robert Eisenman, professor of Middle East religions and director of the Institute for the Study of Judeo-Christian Origins at California State University, Long Beach, tells the 2 directors in the film that Nazareth, the town, never existed in any ancient map. Nazareth indicates who Jesus is rather than where he is from. Nazareth actually refers to the Nazarene movement, an early Jewish vegan movement against animal sacrifice in the temple. Number 4, Jesus liberated the animals in the temple and offended the big boss behind. In the film, Professor Tabor first draws our attention to how Jesus earlier on quoted Hosea 6:6 and admonished the Pharisees. Go and learn what this means. I desire compassion rather than sacrifice. Matthew 9:13 NASB. Then Professor Tabor and Reverend Professor Andrew Linzey, founder and director of the Oxford Center for Animal Ethics, author of Animal Theology, 1994, and Pastor Robert Munro, founder of the St. Francis of Assisi Parish of the Humanitarian Church, New York, argue in the film that Jesus died for the cause of animal liberation. The temple was in reality a slaughterhouse, selling and killing animals as sacrifice, making big profits. And the investors behind were those chief priests and scribes. Prior to the Last Supper, Jesus, in emptying the church, not the church, but the temple of animals about to be slaughtered for sacrifice, and in calling the temple turned butcher shop a den of thieves, debunked the business fraud of animal sacrifice, and disrupted the chief priests and the scribes' lucrative revenue stream, who then immediately conspired to destroy him. Mark chapter 11, verse 15-18, eventually leading to his arrest, trial, crucifixion, and resurrection on Easter. In this sense, Jesus was a pioneer and martyr for animal liberation. Wait a second, put on the mini heater again. A den of thieves is an allusion to Jeremiah 7:11. Has this house which is called by my name become a den of thieves in your eyes? And the context thereof is God condemning animal sacrifice and meat eating. On the other hand, mainstream churches maintain that the word thieves confirms their view that Jesus cleansed the temple for the purpose of ousting money exchange activities rather than animal sacrifice. But Oxford lecturer in Old Testament, Dr. Deborah Rooke, while being interviewed by Kameron, looks up the Hebrew English dictionary, Brown Driver Bricks, and discovers that the Hebrew word paritz for thieves actually means violent one or murderer. Professor Tabor also notes that paritz, the Hebrew verb for paritz, means to break through and is Arabic equivalent means to cut, to slit, to tear, to rend. Thus, Jesus raided the temple not because of the money laundering activities going on there, as alleged by mainstream churches, but because of the violent, murderous activities going on there, which mercilessly shredded, cut, slit, ripped open, and cut into pieces innocent creatures of God. Dr. Will Tuttle, author of World Peace Diet 2005, reminds us in the film that many workers in slaughterhouses are prisoners on parole, and whether the workers are ex-criminals or not, they are susceptible to psychiatric problems. Number 5, Paul the corrupter of Jesus' vegan church. Professor Eisenman and Professor Munro contained in the documentary that Jesus' vegan church was transformed into a carnist church, into a carnivorous church by Paul in collusion with the Roman Empire. They argue that Paul was a spy sent by the Roman Empire, by the colonizer, to corrupt Jesus' vegan church from inside. Paul remarkably stressed that the weak eat only vegetables, Romans 14:2, and we can eat any meat sold in the market without questions of conscience. 1 Corinthians 10:25-26. Jesus probably, not Jesus, but Paul probably even had a hand in stoning to death the James the Just, successor to Jesus, and Jesus' natural brother. He was the leader of the Jerusalem Council before the fall of the Jerusalem in 70 AD. Moreover, Professor Tabor points out that in the film that when Emperor Constantine adopted Christianity as the state religion, the Council of Nicaea was convened by the Pauline Catholic Church in 305 AD to manipulate the Bible. Removing most of the original vegan messages, and vegan Christians were badly persecuted and executed. In my opinion, the Pauline camp has thus hijacked the vegan Church of Jesus Christ for 2,000 years. Enough is enough. Number 6, dominion in Genesis means servanthood. Professor Andrew Linzey states in Christspiracy that the word dominion in Genesis 1:26 means to serve in stewardship rather than despotism or dictatorship. The human species is supposed by God to be the servant species rather than the master species. In this connection, I would like to add that Jesus Christ himself said, I came to serve, not to be served. Matthew 20:28 and Mark 10:45. In conclusion, Kip and Cam at the end of the day conclude that the root of all religions is compassion. There is no spiritual way to kill an animal, and Jesus would never do such a thing. And Professor Tabor in the prologue asserts that God's higher plan is to move us towards harmony, and we are expected to extend our love for human folk to all innocent creatures of God. On the other hand, the review published in Guardian News failed to tackle any of the theological arguments and serious academic researches aforementioned in any way. Its sole purpose is apparently to hit and run. No wonder many people who have viewed the film and read that review suspect that the author of that review and maybe even the media behind have been paid off by the animal agriculture industries and or mainstream churches to libel this epiphanous, eye-opening series documentary. Disclaimer, I do not have any concrete evidence for this allegation. It's just hearsay. I hear someone say it. Okay. Nonetheless, the two directors during the shooting of the film were actually stopped by dubious persons and drones, and the residence was once ransacked, broken into and ransacked, make a mess of. The private detective hired by them to look into the harassment told them that might have something to do with all the money that flows into churches from the agricultural industry and the likes of Christian companies such as Chick-fil-A and In-N-Out Burger, and some animal agricultural big boss may be, well, according to the detective, might be behind all this. Pastor Munro, as aforementioned, also points out at the beginning of the film that the church will stop at nothing to keep the truth from getting out, to keep this truth which has been covered up for 2,000 years from getting out, from being known by the public. In my opinion, again, the flesh-hungry Pauline camp has hijacked Jesus' vegan church for 2,000 years. It is high time we retrieve the original message of the vegan Christ and go vegan in order to honor God and serve his creatures in a compassionate way. Last but not the least, World War III is imminent. The ice at the poles are fast melting, and the earth is getting warmer and warmer due to the carbon footprint of animal agriculture, of animal farms. Millions of people are starving to death as the majority of grains produced is fed to livestock rather than to humans. The best way to fundamentally resolve all these urgent problems is to follow Jesus Christ and Buddha and go vegan. Follow their examples and go vegan. Both Jesus and Buddha play a premium on compassion towards all sentient beings. As put by Dr. Charles Vaclavik in the film, the Nazarene doctrine of Jesus is in line with Pythagoras' vegan principle. Do you remember Pythagoras Pythagoras theorem, which you must have learned in high school. Well, Pythagoras was an ancient Greek philosopher. His vegan principle is as follows: as long as man continues to be the ruthless destroyer of lower living things or lower living beings, he will never know health or peace. For as long as men massacre animals, they will kill each other. Indeed, he who sows the seed of murder and pain cannot reap any love. Okay, today is Saturday, and tomorrow will be the last day on which Christspiracy, the documentary, will be shown in the UK, respectively in Leeds and in London. Please watch it. It will open your eyes wide. Thank you for watching. Take care. God bless.